Welcome to Unleashed, the podcast where we redefine leadership by focusing on what truly matters, the people driving change. Change leadership is about guiding people through transformation in a way that inspires them to embrace change because they believe in it. Whether you're a leader looking to foster a culture of growth or someone eager to break through barriers in life and business, this podcast is for you. Now our host, Wendi.
Welcome to the Unleashed podcast. I'm your host, Wendi. Today, I'm excited to welcome back Matthew. I always say your last name wrong. Is it Gould?
Sounds great, Matthew Gould.
Oh, all right, good. And do you go by Matt or do you go by Matthew? Like, is Matthew only when you're in trouble?
Yeah, from the last podcast, whenever my mom, who's still alive at 84, calls me and starts with Matthew, I believe I'm in a lot of trouble, and I'm 54. So, you know what, Wendi? I don't notice actually what people call me.
That's interesting.
So I say Matthew, and anyway, we're not here to talk about my name, are we?
All right. So Matthew Gould, co-founder of More Company, and that is More. I love the name of your company, More Company, who brings almost 30 years of business experience leading sales teams, managing partnerships, and driving growth in the telecommunications industry. And now Matt, as a certified professional leadership coach, mediator, and negotiation advisor, is passionate about helping leaders and teams achieve extraordinary results while fostering exceptional relationships. So listeners, get ready to dive into insights on personal leadership. We're going to talk about WTF today. Love that. Venn visioning. And we have a lot to dig into. So Matt, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Wendi. I've been loving the previous episodes with the different guests, and yeah, it's a pleasure to see you and to be back here.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun. Yeah, so our last episode we talked about authentic leadership through humility and curiosity. It seemed like a lot of our listeners really resonated with that curiosity piece. So I think it's a great reminder of just positive leadership, what leadership is and what leadership isn't. So, I'm curious, since our last episode, by the way, listeners, if you have not tuned in and listened to the last episode, highly recommend. I'm curious though, any fun leadership experiences that you've had since our last podcast?
Lots. I see leadership happening everywhere. As we talked about last time, everyone's a leader and everyone's a follower. And I recommended a book, which is not really coaching. It's in a way telling someone to read a book. And the person read the book, and I follow up. I meet them in their office, and they ask me to observe a meeting. And the concepts in the book were about taking ownership, being in relationship, and finding our way to the goal we're trying to achieve as a team. Well, Wendi, I'm in the room, and this leader said they'd read the book, and they completely lose it on their team. And they start saying they're blaming and this and that and the other. And so I was smiling in that how much information is out there on leadership. This isn't the first podcast episode ever
Wait, really? Are you sure?
where a host has said we're going to talk about relationships and results and how you can do both. Anyways, what I was smiling at was the application of information when we're under pressure is often where our leadership breaks down and our relationships break down. So, I'm excited to speak with you today about those situations that are real and, in a way, why we break down when we actually have the theory. We know the practical way, and then we get in our own way and we break the relationship thinking that will then get us closer to our goal. So lots of different stories around people have information, they consume great content, and then they don't apply it when in the real life. It's quite sad and incredible opportunity for people if they can overcome that.
Yeah, Matt, what a great way to start the podcast, just with this visual of, you think about when we're under pressure, that's when our true self comes out. when things are going well and I could be really
Mm,
proactive and in how I'm acting and how I'm thinking
yeah.
and life is good.
Yeah. Making lots of money.
Right? Yeah,
Everyone's
right.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah, when things hit the fan, right? It's much more, I talk about information is not implementation.
Right.
And a lot of people say, "Oh, knowledge is power, knowledge is power." Well, I think that's a bunch of crap. Knowledge
Hmm.
is not power. There's no power in knowledge. The power is actually in applying that knowledge. And I think especially in a difficult situation, I'll even say a crisis situation, because that's when your true self comes out. That's when you know if change is really happening versus, "Oh yeah, that was a great book." And then I'm in a meeting and things just blow up. So,
Yeah.
what a great picture for where we're going today. So, I'm curious, one of the things that we talked about before we hit record is you recently did a post, and I love the visual because it's a tree that's been cut off.
Hmm.
And what you say is, and I'm not going to quote you exactly, your tagline was, let's solve situations as allies. And then you also, I think it was a different post, same
Hmm.
picture. Once something's been cut, you can't uncut it.
That's right.
So there's just so much in that. So, Matt, unpack your passion behind that post for us.
Yeah. The passion comes from looking, I'm not a historian. And when I look back at us as humans, showing up as adversaries has not worked. It hasn't worked. So if you and I are adversaries, um, and I cut you down, it's just a matter of time until you regain your strength, you get more resources, and you try to come back and even the score. It's a matter of time. And what I've experienced in corporate life and in personal relationship life is if the relationship isn't winning, we're losing. So Wendi, if you and I, which we are, we're in a professional relationship as in the mutual businesses that we do. If I win, if the only way I can win is for you to lose, this isn't it's not a sustainable relationship. You won't you won't want to do business with me in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so just through looking at that and experiencing different companies and why they get people like yourself and myself engaged, it's either a relationship with an employee, a relationship with a vendor, or a relationship with a customer. And in personal lives, it's a relationship with a spouse or a relationship with an ex-spouse. And the fighting causes both of us to lose. The image on the Instagram page was a tree. And if we cut down the tree, we both will suffer from a lack of oxygen.
Mm.
Like we both lose with the cut down.
Mm-hmm.
So where I'm advocating is, what if we were to approach situations as allies? So the situation is the problem. The situation is the adversary. And let's together solve it, because we're in the situation together. Wendi, if you and I are behind our revenue target in the industry we're in, and you're one of my coworkers, and let's say I'm the leader responsible for the entire company. I'm the CEO, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not hitting our targets. That's our shared problem.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we approach that together and say, hey, we're both in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
What can you do, Wendi, to shift and change how you're showing up to the situation? What can I do to help you? What can I do to help me?
Mm-hmm.
And what can we together do and shift and change to solve the situation, which is we're behind our target? We don't need to fight with each other. If we
Mm-hmm.
fight with each other, we're spending resources and time and energy not towards our solution. We're causing more problems. So yeah, long-winded answer around a perspective that I'd love people to encourage, and we'll keep unpacking here.
Yeah.
How can you show up to situations and see the other person or the other people involved as allies,
Yeah.
not as adversaries? Because in history, it actually hasn't worked. We've been killing each other. Both sides.
Yeah. Well, and Matt, as you're talking and I'm thinking about real life examples,
Yeah.
I'm also reflecting on a conversation with Bruce Herskovitchy, who is a shared mentor of ours. And we had a conversation last week, and I said, Bruce, you just need to be an executive coach. I mean, he just has so many short stories to tell and so many learnings, and
Yeah.
his leadership style has just grown so much over the years.
Yeah.
And he said, he kind of laughed and he said, nope.
Huh.
And I said, Bruce, why not? And he said, I think there's a lot of leaders out there that want to grow, they want to get better, they want to develop. And he said, there's also a lot of leaders out there who prioritize being right over getting it right. And
That's
I
right.
just don't have the patience for it. And I really started to reflect. You know, I just don't think whether you're a leader, whether you're frontline, I don't believe inherently that people wake up in the morning and go, I want to walk into this conversation or this situation with an adversarial perspective. I think most people want to walk into a situation and yeah, we're not hitting target. And so, you know, I don't know about you. I've heard a lot of leaders go, sell more, do more, work harder.
Sure.
I don't know that that comes from an adversarial perspective, or if they just don't know what they don't know, or if they are prioritizing just being right versus getting it right. So when we walk into this relationship, Matt, why does it start out as adversarial?
WTF, you referenced that acronym.
I love that so much. WTF. We all know what that means, or not.
It means a lot of things. So this
Yeah.
this concept is deep and wide. It's not just surface, and it doesn't just mean what we think it means. It often means we're totally frustrated. WTF, we're totally frustrated, or we're triggered fully. Like, we don't understand why, with all of our strategic planning and all of our collective genius, we're not reaching the destination and the vision and the targets we'd set out when we started our business planning in September for the following year.
Right.
So we're totally frustrated. WTF, we're totally frustrated.
And both parties are totally frustrated.
You would think that we would think that.
I would.
and yet we as leaders, me included at times, will think we're the only ones who are committed and have the heart of an owner
and have the urgency and the
yeah. So we're frustrated because we make up a story that the other person who's on our team or the other people aren't as committed. So what do? Because we're behind and we're under pressure, rightfully so. Being a leader is a privilege. It comes with pressure. We can often lash out. We follow our feelings and we speak our feelings. Well, sometimes valuable, not valuable if the impact on the other person is we crush them, we actually injure them, and now we have a new set of problems. We have an injured team member who won't trust us, who is finding a way to stay safe, and they're no longer taking corrective or new adjustments towards what they do need to do and what we need to do together to reach the goal. So, you know, the patience is key. There's a play on words. If we don't have patience, guess what? We're gonna have patience. Like, we're gonna have injured patience.
Oh, right. Pun intended.
And, you know, so back to Bruce. Like, Bruce, I encourage. I'll pick up the phone and talk to him after this. We need more patience as leaders and as team members. We also need to be impatient at times and have more urgency We
Mm-hmm.
just need to do it together. That's the main message to consider here is we need each other in order to reach the goal.
Right.
We do. If you and I are literally at war, we both actually want to not be at war.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a common thing. We want to be out of this war. So Wendi, we talk about a Venn vision. There's your vision, there's my vision, and because they don't align, we go to war. We're totally frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And the choice we make is let's fight each other. The alternative is you have a vision, I have a vision. We both have a vision of the future where we're thriving and we're fulfilled. And if we can find the overlap in that,
Mm-hmm.
which is a Venn vision, we both want out of this then. We both don't want to be at war. We want to reach that Venn vision. Well, the only way, I believe, a way to reach a Venn vision is to collaborate, is to
Mm-hmm.
communicate. So the other half of the model is SWN, which stands for a lot of things. First, it's a question. So what now? So Wendi wants one thing and I want another. So what now? How do we proceed now? And it also stands for say what's necessary.
Mm.
So Wendi, I get to share what's necessary so that we can be communicating and go from misalignment to alignment. And every situation I can think of that's been solved, like reconciled, and there's reconciliation, is when both parties shifted something within themselves and they came together and said, okay, let's now proceed that way together and or in parallel, just not in
Mm-hmm.
relationship anymore, which is fine. Let's both go into the future on different roads and wish each other success.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds so simple, and it sounds like what everyone would want, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
want collaboration. We want to feel ownership. We want to feel part of a team. We all want to be successful.
yeah,
And so why doesn't this happen? I mean, as you said, there's no shortage of information. There's podcasts to learn how to do this. There's, this is not the first leadership podcast ever that people are saying, "Hey, we got to collaborate. Hey, let's be less adversarial and show up as allies."
yeah.
So Matt, why doesn't this happen?
We're human. We're human, like we're human beings, so we have feelings. And we have a thing called an ego. And its cousin is insecurity. We also have insecurity. And so because we're sensitive feeling beings, that's what gets often triggered. Our identity, our sense of safety, our sense of survival.
Mhm.
If Wendi's going to win, it means I'm going to lose, so I'm going to fight now. So I believe, and through experience with working this through with teams, it becomes personal really quickly.
Mm.
And that's how we're wired. WTF is our wiring. What to fight or who to fight or what to flight, who to run away
Mm.
from.
Mm-hmm.
It's a survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And we're evolving. And this is enter in this idea of if I look back in time, fighting and flighting hasn't necessarily served us collectively as humanity. It's served me.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't served we.
Yeah. Well,
So so
and the
go
fight
ahead.
so often may not be verbal, as you said, what to speak, what to say. It may be that I'm completely quiet in a meeting, so the leader thinks everything is just fine,
Yeah,
and I walk out going, I'm pissed, I'm hurt, I'm triggered, I'm, whatever the word is. So it's
yeah,
not always that we're going to battle verbally. It may be the silent battle, right?
yeah, yeah. Being ignored, silent quitting, as we've experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sort of that passive aggressive saying yes and really meaning no, right? There's all those things that go with it. Well, I believe the reason someone's doing that is the leader is not presenting a situation where we can both thrive.
Mm,
And once again, if I have a way and you don't agree with the way, and it doesn't mutually benefit both of us, it's going to there's going to be friction.
right.
Now, the key is if you and I have the same similar vision, there's some overlap. There will be times, Wendy, when you have to sacrifice,
Mm,
and SWN can stand for sacrifice what's needed. I have to let go sometimes of the way I want to do it. I have to go the way that you suggest we go. I might not like it. What I need to be more attached to rather than the way is the destination.
mm-hmm,
What's our shared picture of the future
mm-hmm,
that will require some sacrifice, which means letting go. And this is sometimes, to your point, why do sometimes people have an inability to implement a theory? It's because they have to sacrifice something within themselves. They need to get uncomfortable.
mm-hmm.
And we seek often comfort. And I don't think comfort in my history, comfort hasn't served me. It's actually held me back.
Mm-hmm.
Yet when I sweat, when I give effort, when I sacrifice, when there's blood, sweat, and tears towards where I'm trying to get to, that's where fulfillment and satisfaction and achievement comes from. It's
Mm-hmm.
not from the comfort road. It's from the choice that says, okay, Wendy, I disagree with the route you're suggesting. I agree with the destination we're trying to get to. Let's go for it together and let's
Right.
see. So then we get back into what's the feedback. WTF is what's the feedback we're getting from the route Wendy's told us to take. And possibly we're surprised when it's actually working and we say, okay, well, let's continue on this route. Let's sustain what's needed in order to reach our Venn vision. So
Mm.
lots of words in here. How's this landing for you?
Well, so I'm processing as you're talking, and I want to take this to a real life example here in just
Yeah.
a moment. What I'm processing is, and tell me if I'm right here, if I'm getting this right. So it starts with a mindset on both sides. It's not just the leader's responsibility. If it's also my responsibility to confront my emotions coming into this and my goals and my willingness to sacrifice and collaborate and give a
Yeah.
little bit and make sure that I'm getting out of my comfort zone by sharing some things that may be difficult. And so, I think about this mindset of an achievement culture
Yeah.
versus a competitive culture. A competitive culture, somebody's got to lose so that I can win. Versus an achievement culture, how can we all win? Which sounds a little bit soft, admittedly. I don't know that that's always possible. Having that mindset, though, of the collaboration of we both probably want the same thing. And so choosing a mindset coming into it of achievement going, how do we create a win-win? Is that a good place to start?
How do we reach our shared vision of the future?
Okay, shared vision of the future. Okay.
Adversarial is here's my vision of the future, and yours is different. We're going to have a winner and a loser. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. Look around.
Mm-hmm.
Just look around at different
Yeah.
relationships. So with the feelings that we have, which are real, and I hope we continue to have those feelings of
Yeah.
frustration and
Yeah.
irritation, and Wendy doesn't get me, and she thinks she's always right, and
Yeah.
all those thoughts that when thoughts form, WTF, with the thoughts that have formed,
All the WTFs that I've just never thought about. I love that.
what is our shared picture of the future
Mm-hmm.
that we can both say yes to? And then we need to possibly sacrifice something in order to arrive there together or in parallel or even apart, but we both have a mutually beneficial future that we can coexist with together. I'll give you a very quick story. Have you ever been involved in 360 feedback or been in companies that do
I
feedback?
have.
Okay. I conduct them and was recently put myself through one. And the way that we conduct feedback is if you think about this for any recipe in life that you're trying to improve, like continuous improvement, the process of Kaizen, is you stop something that's not working, that's not helping you get to your shared destination. You actually stop that behavior or that activity. So stop what's necessary, SWN. You then start what's needed. Could be something new, could be something you used to do that you stopped doing, and now you need to bring it back. So you start what's needed. And the third type of adjustment to feedback is you sustain what's needed. You continue doing what's working that will get you to your shared goal. So I recently went through this process, and Wendi, one of the pieces of feedback was, if I had a chance to renew Matt's contract, I wouldn't. So what do you think my first reaction was when I heard that feedback? WTF. Yet there was so much value in that comment because I wanted the feedback. And there was then a sub bullet as to why this person would not renew my contract if they had the chance. Well, great. What I was contributing as a leadership coach was not in alignment with where this person was trying to go. So the feedback, my first reaction was, who was this? They're wrong. How dare they? And once I collected my feelings and I honored them and I realized what we were trying to do and what my role is with them as an executive coach, I then sought more information. I kept reading, and with more information, I got more information. Then a play on words is in formation. We went from being out of alignment to alignment, and I now know what I can adjust based on this person's feedback to get us closer to our shared picture of the future. So it's just an example of, we're going to have these feelings when things aren't going our way, and 360 feedback's an excellent way for us to understand what our impact is and what we think it is versus what it really is with someone else, and then to shift what's needed to reach our mutual destination, instead of me blaming the person doing the feedback and saying, well, they don't get me. They're too sensitive.
They're not doing the work.
Yeah, and now I'm into who to fault. Yeah. WTF, who to fault, instead of, ooh, I've got to seek with curiosity what's really going on here for our mutual relational and results-based future.
So one of the things that you talk about is speaking with neutrality, and that's part of sustaining what's necessary, another SWN, right? I'm saying that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that part of this conversation?
It can be.
Is stop the blame, stop the pointing fingers, and start asking questions, be curious, so that you know what to do differently, and that's what you sustain. So would that go with speaking with neutrality, or am I putting a square peg into a round hole?
The book, The Four Agreements. Have you read the book, The Four Agreements?
I have not.
Okay. Then I won't reference it anymore.
Oh, you can.
It's a great
Teach
book.
us.
One of the agreements is, don't take things personally. Well, I don't know a human being on earth
that sounds so simple.
outside of a possible psychopath, who, outside of some of that, who can't take things personally. Like, it's a great idea to don't take things personally. I wrote back to the authors, and I said, and interestingly, they didn't respond. I think it sold over 20 million copies. But my feedback was, consider rewriting the agreement to don't take things personally. Consider rewriting it to, after you take something personally.
I love that reframe, Matt.
Don't. Like, after you do.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah, stop telling me not to feel something. It's natural to feel that. And that's not realistic to say, don't take it personal. Well, it is personal.
Yeah. So the second agreement was, is don't make assumptions. Well, I also wrote the author, by the way, incredible book. Read it. This is just a perspective.
Yeah.
I said, hey, consider rewriting that agreement to, after you make an assumption, don't like share it
or challenge your assumptions.
Yeah, in I was trained last year through MPI, the Meta Performance Institute, as I continue my development at 54 years old. And they say, don't trust your assumptions, test them.
Love it.
So what speak with
Mm.
neutrality means is rather than speak your assumption with such emphasis that you're right, or such emphasis that the other person's wrong, or that your assumption is factual. If you share it with neutrality, and I throw it out there, and I just say, hey, I assume let's say I've been speaking too much on this episode. I've been speaking too much. I get to throw it out with neutrality. And you're
Mm.
either going to say, yes, Matt, you have. Uh, no, Matt, you haven't. Or maybe let's explore and find out.
Mm-hmm.
So the speaking with neutrality, everything is situational based, Wendy. So if you and I are walking down the street, you're on your smartphone, your head is in your phone, and we're about to cross a busy road, and there's a bus coming, and you're following me on Instagram and you're reading one of my feeds, let's say. I'm not going to speak with neutrality. I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm wondering if you noticed the bus that's careening down the road right now and about to hit you. I'm not going to speak with neutrality.
Mm.
I'm going to shout and
Right.
I'm gonna scream with necessity, SW, and I'm going to scream with necessity so that our Venn vision, we're both alive and we can go for lunch together, because that's what our goal was. So yes to speaking with neutrality it can be useful as a way to test an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always the right SWN answer, because what does the situation call for?
Mm.
That often dictates the question to so what now. The answer to so what now is, well, first of all, what's the situation? And number two, what's the shared destination we're going for? We always need both. We need the situation, we need where we're headed, to then answer the question, so what now? Like solutions we need. You mentioned your heater and your air conditioning. So with the forecast, WTF with the forecast, hot, cold, your vision is to be comfortable. And so what do we need? We need to call in someone to help us. We need help, allies.
Mm-hmm.
You need someone to come in and technically fix your air conditioning and your heater. And the goal is we're both mutually happy at the end. You can send a 5-star review. You're comfortable. So yeah, there's a lot in there that I just threw out. But once again, it's
Mm-hmm.
when we're out of alignment, we're both out of alignment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's collaborate to get into alignment.
Yeah. Context for my
Yeah.
air conditioner. I live in Orlando, Florida, for our listeners, and
Yes.
I had spent Christmas in Arizona with my son. Had a great time. Came home, and it was 29 degrees outside in Orlando, Florida. The Panhandle had 9 inches of snow, unheard of. You know, my home is, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, and I had never ever used the heat, because why would I, right?
Yeah.
And so I come home, and of course I turn it on and my heater doesn't work. Well, $700 later and $75 a pound of Freon eventually, gets my heater to work. What he didn't do is actually test both the heat and cold to make sure that when I actually use the anyway. So this morning was
Yeah.
a little bit of a challenging adversarial situation that got resolved. And I
Yeah.
want to walk through, Matt, like an actual example of this, because you have so much insight on this, and it's powerful, I think, you mentioned this leadership evolution. And I do believe, when I graduated from college with a business degree, it wasn't even an option to take a leadership course. And today, people are getting their doctorate in strategic leadership and all these great, sexy titles.
Mm.
And I don't know that we're actually getting better as leaders, because what the statistics show is, last one I read, I think 88% of employees are saying, look, I need my leader to be there. I need them to be there. I need to be
Yeah.
able to trust them.
Yeah.
I need leadership, and I believe it's important for my engagement in the job, for my productivity, a lot of things. And yet, I think it's in the low 20s. I think it was 23% of employees are actually saying that they're getting what they need
Right.
from their leadership. And so I
Yep.
want to put this into practice. So, let's just say, for example, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot that you're my leader and we do one-on-ones every single week. And I'm in sales. Let's say
Yep.
I'm in B2B sales and you're a new manager. And
Yep.
every single week I'm going into these one-on-ones and I'm just like, oh, for the love of God, I've got so much to do, and this is not helping me in my productivity. You're
Yep.
new, so half the time I feel like I'm teaching you. I
Yep.
mean, these one-on-ones are just not working. Okay, your point of view is, you know, I, I walk away and I don't feel like they're valuable, and
Yep.
Wendy's not listening to me. She's completely disengaged.
Yep.
I ask her if she has questions at the end, and she doesn't ask questions. And so we're walking into this not as allies. It's something we have to do every week. It's required. It's not something I look forward to.
Hmm.
Is that a situation where this Venn diagram and using SNW and
Hmm.
WT, walk us, what does this look like? How do we change the outcome? How do we make it more collaborative as allies?
That example you gave sounds common. Not not everyone's in that situation. It's a common one. So some are even worse. There's no regular one-on-one connections about shared responsibility and performance. Like some companies don't have it at all. Some companies have it way too much.
Right.
Like micromanage to the point of we can't meetingitis. Like we can't actually get anything done because we have this thing called meetingitis.
Yeah, and so
Um,
many companies like it's a check mark. Did you do your one-on-one? Yep. Like they're not talking about the quality of the one-on-one. And I think this
right.
conversation of ally versus adversarial, I just
Yeah.
makes so much sense. So
So
how do we
so
fix it?
it yeah, so here's a way to consider fixing it. Each situation's different. You mentioned I'm the leader and you're the salesperson. The first idea to consider shifting language is we're both equally responsible for the one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
So we're both leaders. You're leading your responsibility of acquiring and keeping and retaining and growing existing clients. And I'm responsible for that and other responsibilities. We have different role responsibilities. One way to moving forward practically for listeners is we're both equally responsible for the one-on-one. So Wendy, if you leave a one-on-one, say, what a colossal waste of time. You're saying that out loud to yourself or your inside voice. My encouragement to listeners is how do you come back to me as your teammate, not as your leader? You're your leader of you. You're the leader of you. How do you come back and say, "Hey, Matt, hey, just want to quickly check in. I didn't get a ton of value from that last interaction."
Boy, that takes
Oh,
some courage. Whew.
okay. If we don't have, so does leading. Leading takes courage. If
Mm-hmm.
we don't have that ability, we could also say, "Hey, Matt, I'm wondering for our next one." So you're right. Often if we talk about the past, the other person can get aggressive or defensive
Yeah.
because it's a version of who to fault. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like Matt, that last one wasn't very good. Well, you and I cannot go back and undo the last one-on-one.
Right.
So your first reaction there, oof, that takes courage. I say, yes, it does. And another way to do it is to say, hey, Matt, I'm wondering about our next one-on-one. Here's something that I feel might serve us more and might be a better use of because both of our time is super important. And what if we were to approach it this way? And here's the mutual benefit I see if we were to approach it that way next Monday. Well, now both you and I have the ability to make an adjustment for a mutually beneficial future. You're not faulting me for our last one being bad. But here's the key. You're saying what's needed. If you're finding the one-on-ones aren't working, say it.
SWN, say what's
Say
needed.
that
Yeah.
without faulting me. say it in a way, because I'm probably going, Wendy, like, it's a waste of time for me too. Well, our mindset is actually needs to shift.
Right.
We need to shift to, what's the point of getting together?
There you
Mutual
go. Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah.
Mutual
Yeah.
improvement. Also, say what you notice. WTF isn't just, the negative. It's like, what's the success? What's the fame? With the fame, with the progress, what's the feedback? What's the feedback we're noticing? Oh, we just got a new client, or we're ahead of target. Great. Let's have a one-on-one. Let's connect. What do we need to sustain or do more of
Mm-hmm.
to get more of those wins? So
Right.
one-on-ones are about what's not working, how normal, what's working, how
Mm-hmm.
normal, and what we could do to pour gasoline on it and take it even to the next level. How normal. We both want that. So
Right.
yeah, I think one-on-ones, it's a shared responsibility. I'll get frustrated
Mm-hmm.
here. And it's a shared responsibility for a better picture of the future. That's
Mm-hmm.
why we're getting together.
Well, and I love that you started with me. Right. I mean, so often I think, I go, this is up to the leader. She's the manager. She's and I'm
Yep.
pointing my finger versus taking responsibility to say, hey, you know what, Matt? I'm not sure that I'm clear on what the goals are in this one-on-one. And I want to make sure that I'm bringing to the table what you want me to bring to the table.
Yep.
And there's some things that honestly, I'm kind of newer in the position. So every single one-on-one, could you give me a tip or a trick, or,
Yeah.
you've managed this territory and you're now the supervisor. This is your territory. So what can you tell me about this territory that's going to help you blah, dot, dot, dot.
Yeah.
So your first comment was not, well, it's up to the leader to dot, dot, dot.
All right.
You came right to me and I'm not getting what I needed. And I think so often I do this exercise with, I have a communication and teamwork workshop that I do that I did with law enforcement in
Mm.
Kansas with the Kansas
Yeah.
Bureau of Investigations. We had the sheriff's department, and then we also had the police department, West or South Hutch Police Department.
Yeah.
And we did this exercise where you can't talk, and it literally simulates the communication cycle. So you've got an initiator.
Great.
If I ever do this exercise, I hope people aren't listening because this kind of gives it away. You've got the conduit that's going to be receiving the information, and then you've got the implementers in the back.
Great.
And how they're communicating is they're passing notes, and the communication can only go this. It can't go this way, even though I have
Yes.
multiple people in the back.
Yes.
And the one person in the front, the initiator, is the only one that has the goal and the answer to solving. They have to solve something. They have to solve a puzzle.
Wow.
They assume that everybody else, when they open their envelopes, because they have envelopes with instructions,
Yeah.
they assume that everybody has the same information, and they don't. And guess
That's
what?
right.
The only job is they all have symbols on their paper, and their only job as the initiator of communication is to figure out what one symbol they all have in common. That's it.
Wow.
And you know what they never do? It's not never. It's rare
Yeah.
that you have an initiator that says, "Hey, the goal of this exercise is dot dot dot. Therefore, please list all of your symbols and pass them forward." If they do that, it's like that.
Wendy.
So often, I have one more thing. So often what happens is this puzzle is not solved by the front. It's solved by the back, the implementers, me, the salesperson that's just flailing, raising their hand and saying, I have no idea what the goal is. Could somebody please tell me what the goal is? And
Right.
at that point, the leader goes, light bulb. I assumed, to your point
That's
earlier,
right.
I assumed that we all had the same information. Guess
Right.
what? When people are failing in organizations, it is not just the leader. It is my responsibility to go, could you please help me understand what the goal is?
Everyone on a team has the responsibility of leading. It's
So
not a
important.
position. You share John Maxwell. You had quoted him in our previous episode. And John Maxwell has a book, 5 levels of leadership. Level 1 is position. So back to your university days and not getting leadership courses, we came out and we were put into a position of
Right.
leadership. That's level 1, Wendi. Level 1.
Yeah.
There's 5 levels. And I encourage people to read John Maxwell's book. And yes,
Is that in 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, or is that in?
it's its own standalone book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's its own standalone book. And maybe you can put it in the show notes. And yes, if we make assumptions, so after we make them, don't, or after we make them, share them out loud.
Yeah. Test them. I love what you said. Test them.
Test them. Yeah, don't trust them, test them. That's
Yeah.
MPI.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the person who's at the back of the room says, hey, I have a question. I need to share what I need. I'm not super clear on where we're going. And rather than the leader say, you should know. How do you not know?
That word is so bad. I hate that word. Should. Quit shoulding on people. Oh,
Yeah.
you should not. That's terrible.
Right. So if we take ownership, hey, you should know, you don't know, where is that me? Rather than get WTF, rather than get totally frustrated, I get to say, okay, I thought I was clear on where we were headed, the goal of this exercise, the vision, and the what's in it for all of us if we solve it.
Yeah.
I thought I was. Sounds like I wasn't. Even if I think I was. You're telling me I wasn't. Oh, okay. So let me share it again. Here's the goal of the exercise. Here's what's in it for all of us should we solve it. SWN, solutions we need. Here's the problem. There's multiple routes that we can choose to get there. How do we get there in a way that we both thrive?
Well, I love that. And the leader is redefining the goal, confirming that clearly I don't know what the goal is. And I think that also gives an opportunity to redefine the goal. That collaboration in the middle that you talk about with the Venn vision. Because now when you ask me, well, Wendy, I don't know. I'm curious. I have a goal. I'd like to know what your goal is. Well, now we have the opportunity to widen that circle in the middle so that maybe I have a need that's not getting met. And yet you have a need from me that just opens up collaboration. So I love that picture so much.
Collaboration over confrontation.
Yeah, that's big.
We could confront each other if we're confronting each other as allies.
Yeah.
So you went just a minute ago, you said, the leader didn't communicate. The leader in the back is communicating. So if there was 20 people in that exercise, there's actually 20 leaders, all and 20 followers, all contributing, hopefully, towards the shared goal in the future.
Right.
So if I, as a leader, let's say, and the team I support, if I haven't been clear and the other person says, you haven't been clear, that other person is actually leading me now to be clear.
Yeah.
So there's no fault. There's no fault.
Right.
Because if I fault you, you're going to defend yourself.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, Wendi, let's just pause for a moment. I'm unclear. Not you've been unclear. I'm currently unclear. Can we just get clear?
Yeah.
And you say, yeah, here's the goal. And I say, thank you. Whew, now we proceed.
Right. And I may say, and by the way, could we also ... Well, how much better did we both get? Because guess what? Now in her other one-on-ones, the ripple effect of that is just huge. Okay. So Matt, this all sounds great. And if I'm a listener, I go, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. That is not my leader. Like if all leaders were like you, we probably would not be having this conversation. Because we would be asking conversations, or we would be asking questions. We would be coming in with the right mindset. So, there's a couple of words that just kept coming to mind as I was preparing for this podcast and thinking about adversarial mindset versus a mindset of being allies. And, I started to think about there's a lot of leaders out there who are narcissistic, who are gaslighting. These, and I don't even want to say terms, this new vocabulary, we weren't talking about gaslighting and narcissism, even 5 years ago. Like this is fairly new. So these have become more prominent in recent years, especially in the leadership world. And so help us walk through this. If I have a leader and I'm doing a one-on-one with
Yep.
you and you're narcissistic, you're gaslighting,
Yep.
does this work?
Well, does it? I don't think it does. It works for the narcissist. And the implementation afterwards isn't working for the person that we've labeled. So once again, all of these labels, first of all, none of us, very few of us, can actually classify someone as a narcissist. um, that is a different level. It's not my pay grade. I know that. So I would once again, and people won't like me. They may disconnect right now, and that's fine. They're missing an opportunity potentially if they hang up or go to the next podcast episode. The labeler. I'm now faulting you. If I say, Wendi, you're a narcissist, I'm now faulting you. You might be one. I now need to solve this with you. Or I leave the company. I can leave the company.
And you're speaking from my perspective or the leader's perspective?
Well, both people are leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the sake of this, if I have a narcissistic leader and I'm like, yeah, Matt, sounds really good, and you don't know my leader, they're a
Right.
narcissist,
Right.
right? Well, first of all, you're are they? Like, and if they are, what are you do like what can you do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you get into allyship with that person and
Mm-hmm.
focus on not their faults, but the shared goal we're trying to achieve? And it doesn't always work. I know people in relationships with narcissists, and it's a true definition. They truly meet those criteria. And the so what now is I'm going to leave that relationship.
Hmm.
That's fine. That's fine. It's actually a wonderful choice. But they don't attack that narcissist anymore. They just say, okay, I noticed that you're not making the adjustments that will serve this relationship in health, which is hopefully one of our Venn overlapping visions is health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to choose to go and do my life and my career somewhere else. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like it's okay. Your behavior's not okay.
Yeah.
And so my choice is I get to move on. Now, if someone doesn't have the ability to do that for economic reasons, they can't just start a new job. How do you communicate in such a way that doesn't trigger that other person,
Right.
but focuses on a mutually beneficial future? A mutually beneficial future. There are ways to do it.
And how do you, so what are some of the questions if I have that leader that, as Bruce would say, is more concerned about being right than doing it right?
Yeah.
Are there questions, if I can come in as an ally, are there successful questions that I can ask in those situations to help widen that then vision so
Yeah.
that there can be more collaboration?
Yes, there are. And the listeners get to search for those. Like I don't know which question I could. There's so many. I'm overwhelmed. I would be overwhelmed with which one is going to serve the listener. That's
Hmm.
what I would encourage your listener. What's the question you can ask that isn't accusational, that isn't
Yeah.
making you right and them wrong? That is asking the other person to think, oh, what's another way I could do this? Like
Hmm.
if you're one of those challenging leaders, I could say, hey, Wendi, like you're incredibly smart. You are incredibly smart. And the way you're proposing that we do this, it's actually a way that we could. Wendi, what's an even better way? Like you're
Hmm.
so smart, Wendi. Like what's an even better way that we
Hmm.
haven't thought of yet?
Hmm.
It that might not work for people. They might think that's passive aggressive. That might like this is why it's hard to answer the question. But you're
Hmm.
asking the question I think we need to answer, which is so what now?
Yeah.
Right? There how do we proceed now together? We need to do this as collective humanity, like globally. We need
Yeah.
to figure out how do we find that mutually beneficial picture in the future for both of us where we can both thrive.
Yeah.
It requires both of us, both sides, to come together as allies and solve that together instead of attacking and killing each other. We will both lose. If the relationship isn't winning, we are losing.
And if we're in a situation where we have that desire and yet the other person just does not, so do I hear you saying control what you can control and do something different?
Control yourself, influence others.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a post I recently did, and which is it's on a Starbucks cup. I find there's lots of wisdom on coffee cups, not just Starbucks cups. And I wrote on it. I was on a coaching call, and this person was we're doing some executive coaching, and I wrote, there is a way, we just haven't found it yet. So when we're frustrated, when we're behind our target, when we're ahead of target, when we have a leader that is not in alignment with what we would like them to be as a leader, and they're still our leader in role, and we're leaders too, we just haven't found a way yet
Mm.
to figure it out. Once again, we can always leave the relationship. That's always an option. We can always
Mm-hmm.
leave the company. That's always an option. And what if one of the things people take away from today is when you're frustrated or when you're in a situation with someone that has those characteristics, there is a way we can proceed. We just
Mm-hmm.
haven't found it yet,
Mm-hmm.
including going down parallel roads. We're just not in the same vehicle together.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Like there is a way
Yeah.
to move forward.
Yeah. I love the hope in that. You know, that there is always, when you really think about any given situation, there is always a way.
There
And
is.
it may not be that we stay together. It may not be that it's this big celebration at the end of the year where we had communication breakthroughs and, you know,
Yeah.
or it may be. It oftentimes though starts with one person just asking the question, WTF,
Yeah.
and then deciding, so what do we do now? So I
Right.
love that WTF SWN framework and how that can help us show up as allies and create a Venn vision
Mm,
with collaboration in the
mm,
middle.
mm.
I just think that gives hope.
It's in Canada, the Truth and Reconciliation. Maybe we'll end on this. The Truth and Reconciliation process we've gone through, or we continue to go through, and will go through for generations to come. It is about there was some things in the past that were not okay.
Mm-hmm.
We need to acknowledge that they weren't okay. We need to both agree that they, well, not even agree, acknowledge they weren't okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so now, how do we proceed with new thoughts, actions, and behaviors together? So it's going to continue, right? Like this is
Yeah.
not a silver bullet
Yeah.
approach, and
Right.
it's an approach which is we've both done some things that didn't make sense in the past. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We've both been adversarial. Yes. How's that got us to where it has got us today? Well, it's got us to where we are today.
Yeah.
And what if going forward, we chose to approach this in a slightly different way, which was together, let's solve for our mutual future. We don't need to agree.
Mm-hmm.
We just get to proceed together.
Yeah. And we both have responsibility.
Amen.
Yeah. So good. Well, Matt, great conversation around Venn Vision and the SWN WTF framework, which I love so much.
Mm,
So as our listeners have gone, you know, have listened to this and they had some ideas, some enlightenments, maybe some, oh boy, what do I can relate. I just don't know what to do now. You know, I
yeah.
always like to leave our listeners with some kind of an action. What can they do today? Where do they start?
When they change their steps, they change our dance.
Mm,
So rather than look out, I call it outside the hula hoop leadership, another concept maybe for another time. The first thing they can do is take an inventory of their own thoughts, actions, and behaviors and stay within that
mm-hmm.
and then ask themselves, what can I stop doing that isn't contributing to where I'm trying to go, that isn't contributing to this relationship or the profits and metrics we're trying to achieve in our company? What could I start to do differently? I'm going to try. I don't know yet, but I'm going to try. And hey, I've been trying, so I'm going to continue. I'm going to sustain what I know, living in alignment with my values and so on and so forth. So where I would encourage listeners to go is not outside to blame the other side, but to take full responsibility and an inventory of, how am I showing up? How am I contributing to this current misalignment? Because I must be, because I'm in relationship with it.
That's right.
And then what can I stop, start, and sustain? Like, if I change my steps, Wendi, I change our dance. And that's the only thing I can control. And for those out there, not for sure, but a high likelihood, there's hope that eventually one day, if we keep doing that and we stay within the ownership model and the mutual goals of the future, there is a way forward. We just haven't found it yet.
Right. Well, and there is no magic wand. There is no one right answer. There is, no box, that gives all of the answers. So I think,
that's right.
You're very wise to do something, take responsibility, do something different, control what you can control, knowing what the goal is, which, it's finding those things that we have in common, and that is possible. So I just want to thank you so much, Matt. What a great episode. And I do look forward to the next one. Let's keep this going. Matt, we will make sure that all of your information is in the show notes. What's the best way when people have questions about this, Matt? What's the best way for them to contact you?
moreco.ca on Instagram, or just call me.
Great.
And I always like to say, Wendi, people don't need to call me. Go within and call out from within themselves. Like this, you call it wisdom. I believe it's in all of us, most of us. It's in all of us or most of us. And so you could follow me. You could also go within yourself and call out, rather than your emotions, which are real and you're going to have them, call out the best version of yourself. And find ways together to get to that picture of the future. That's what I would do. So they can call me, they can DM me, my information's out there.
Okay. And it'll be in the show notes. All right, Matt, thank you so much.
Thanks, Wendi.
Thanks for listening to Unleash with Wendi Swanson. Make sure to subscribe and follow to be notified when the newest episodes of the podcast go live. Please take a moment to rate and review us. It helps others discover Unleashed and join our movement of forward-thinking leaders. You can find contact information and important links in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember, keep leading with authenticity, embrace change, and choose to live life unleashed.